Hello and welcome back to Conquering My Collection. It's a bit of an interesting film and Blu-ray and version of a film in this video, I think, and apologies for the sore throat. I watched this film because I thought it was in the book, 1,000 More Movies You Must See Before You Die. So I showed it to Connie in the hopes that we would do a review together talking about this film. And I don't know why. I have a big stack of Blu-rays and I put them all there in terms of like, these are in the book, 1,000 More Movies You Must See Before You Die. I should get to that at some point. And this was in the stack. I don't know why I put it in there, because it isn't in the book. And as far as I can tell, it's never been in the book. Maybe I might be wrong about that. I'm only working off the one edition that I bought in 2013. But The Warriors was not in the book, and I realized this just 10 minutes before we finished watching it. So that was kind of a huge waste of time, but nevertheless, we watched it, and I want to talk about it just a little bit. And I was considering putting this in the series films I think you should see before you die that aren't in the book, but I don't think I feel as passionately about this film, but I do feel passionately about the ultimate director's cut in which this film is presented in. I don't know why I'm withholding what the film is, because you've seen it in the title and the thumbnail of the video, but it is The Warriors. Now this is a film by, what's his name? Walter Hill. I was thinking of George Miller? No, not George Miller. Of course I wasn't thinking about George Miller, but George seemed to kind of be spinning in my mind as I was thinking about who directed this film. But it is very much, was it George Roy I'm thinking of? There's some George connection with Walter Hill. I don't know what it is. Anyway, Walter Hill directed this film, The Warriors. So this is a very nice looking Blu-ray. And on the back it says we have 4 featurettes, introduction by the director, and the original theatrical trailer. What it doesn't tell you is that this doesn't have the theatrical version of the film. It just has the ultimate director's cut, which was made in 2005, which can only have been for DVD release. So, I grew up with this film. We'll talk about the director's cut in a minute. I grew up with this film. Well, I didn't grow up with it. When I was a kid, I was aware of it, and that very classic moment with, and I've completely forgotten his name. See, this is why I don't do enough research on these things. You know the guy who I'm talking about. Warriors come out to play. What's his name? He plays Jerry Horn in Twin Peaks. It's gone. It's gone. You know the guy, the bad guy in the Warriors. And Warriors come out to play. So I can't do that with the sore throat. That's my excuse. But it's a very striking scene and a very striking moment. I remember that vividly from my youth. So my dad must have watched it. There's no way my mum would watch this film. So I'm pretty sure I saw this with my dad, or at least some of it. But I hadn't seen this fully until I was 26 and 364 years old, because I remember this. It was the day before my 27th birthday. I was staying at a friend's house near London, and I was about to wrestle said friend the next day on my 27th birthday. It was my final wrestling match. And the night before, we decided to watch a film, and we were browsing Netflix, and he said, The Warriors is a classic. And I said, I saw that when I was a kid, but I haven't really properly seen it. Let's watch it. Watched it, loved it. Oh my God, so much fun. Absolutely loved it. So it was natural that I would buy the Blu-ray, and then for some reason I thought it was in the 1,000 More Movies book, but it wasn't. Anyway, I watched it with Connie, and I realized that this is not the original version of the film. It comes with an introduction by the director, Walter Hill, where he talks about this is his preferred vision of the film. He understands if people prefer the original version of the film. He said there's no problem with that, but this is the way I envisioned it and the way I wanted it to be seen, so that people understand the connection to ancient myth and the comic book influence on the story. Maybe even comic book origin. I can't remember if he said that or not. I don't know if this is based on a comic book, but the film is reframed as a literal comic strip. So the opening has this this introduction that's kind of about ancient myths and stuff like that, and maybe the Romans. I can't even remember. I was that taken aback that I kind of didn't even take it all in, because I was like, wow, this is really like a 2000s era digital clean kind of motion comic style image, and it was very jarring, when you then jump into the gritty, raw, filmic, 1970s film, The Warriors. So that began. I thought, okay, maybe it was just the introduction, but throughout the entire film, you'll have scene to scene, and then suddenly the gorgeous kind of grainy, and the transfer is beautiful in this film. It really looked a lot better than I thought it would, because The Warriors is a very grimy, kind of gritty film, and I kind of expected that they wouldn't give it that much care and attention when it came to restoring the film. but it looks fantastic. There's some shots in this film that look gorgeous, so I was really happy with the Blu-ray transfer on this film. But you have that gorgeous grainy 35mm image, and then suddenly it'll just freeze, and then it'll be taken over by a comic book style effect, and then it'll zoom out to the comic strip and be like, meanwhile, and it'll cut to the next scene, and then that next scene will come to life as a film, which is all fine and good. And I haven't looked into like the original cut of the film and how much is lost, but it certainly feels like they've trimmed a few bits and pieces. If not, I mean, I think it is longer than the theatrical version, so maybe they haven't. But definitely in the final scene, the last shot of the film, which isn't spoiling anything, is characters walking along a beach. And it freeze frames, it turns into the comic book, and then it just shows you like frames from the ending and the end in a very comic book style font, which you have throughout the film as well. And the last frame in the comic strip shows them walking way off down the beach, which you don't see in the actual visual part of the film. So I feel like they did trim part of that final shot of them walking off along the beach. And I want to see the whole shot. I want to see them walking down the beach. I don't want to see this 2000s era photoshopped. It doesn't look like it's drawn. It looks like they've taken the image and they've traced over it. And it looks cool-ish, but just as like an art piece or something you just see on Twitter and like it and move on with your life, not something integrated into the film itself. And the fact that the theatrical version isn't included is really a shame. I looked online, people are complaining about this and saying that the only way to get the theatrical version is the German Blu-ray, which is very expensive, like 30 quid. I don't love the film enough to double dip to that degree. Did it ruin my enjoyment of the film? No. Does it take even a half star off my rating of the film? No. But it's just an unfortunate thing where I understand it. It's your film, it's your art, do whatever you want with it. But I mean, maybe if they commissioned someone to draw like really 70s era comic book style panels that match the film, and just made it look grimier. It's just the white lines are very clean and clinical and digital and smooth, and then you have the film, which is grainy and full of texture and life, and the two just don't blend very well together, I don't think. So, yeah, and I'd never really thought about the fact that the film feels a bit like a comic book in that sense, and it really does. But what the film has is these wipes where it will be like a Star Wars wipe, or a Kurosawa wipe, wherever you want to go back to the origins of that method of transition, where a line will come across the screen. But in the Warriors, it's not just a kind of smooth, faded line like in Star Wars. It's like a white line that kind of comes across or up diagonally. And the white line very much feels like a comic book, the edge of a comic book strip. So it works really well, and it kind of gets that across if you're really looking for it and paying attention. But anyway, that's all that aside. The Warriors, I don't have too much to say about the film. I just wanted to talk about that because it was such a surprising thing that I'd never known about. You often think of George Lucas when it comes to a special edition version of a film that is released on home video, and then the original version is kind of quietly pushed under the rug. Steven Spielberg did it with E.T., but then he also made sure to offer people with the option of the theatrical version, and by the time Blu-ray rolled around, he listened to the fan feedback and realized they don't want the CGI E.T., so we're junking it, we're just going to go with the original version, that's what you're getting. So there's many different ways to approach it, but I don't like this revising your films and then kind of, removing the option to see the original. Apparently you can see the theatrical version on digital streaming, which is fine for people who like streaming. I like having films on disc. So yeah, kind of unfortunate. I hope they'll release maybe a 4K down the line and have both options. That'd be really nice because the transfer does look really great. So I wouldn't want to have a lesser transfer for the sake of not. I don't know. I would rather watch this version if it was better quality and just suffer through they're very small in the kind of the cutaways, the comic book style stuff, but it just seems unnecessary and it doesn't blend or gel well with the rest of the film, which is such a ride. I love The Warriors. It's such a fun movie. And I was sitting there watching it just being like, fuck yeah, it's just a cool film. And it's essentially about gangs. That's all it is, about gangs and violence. And it's, if you look at this as kind of a realistic film, it's like, you're not going to enjoy it very much. It's a comic booky, pulpy kind of action film. But there's not even that much action. There's a few like really badass fight scenes, but it's more about the build-up to these action scenes, the tension and the kind of the gang warfare stuff, and it's kind of played into for kind of not for laughs, but it's played up for entertainment. You have the gang who are like they got like face painting like Kiss, and they got the baseball bats and stuff. That was probably the worst part, is when I forget what they called. Let's just say it's the baseball crew. There was something maybe a slightly cooler name than that, but we have the comic books transition, and suddenly we see them, and it's like the baseball crew ! Holy shit! and then we transition into the scene, and it just felt unnecessary. Like, just give us the fucking actual film. So we have all these different styles of gangs, and they all dressed the same. And 9 members of each gang have all gone to Brooklyn, I believe, somewhere in New York, and to have this big meeting. And the big Don, Cyrus, is there giving this big speech in this kind of play park, and he gets shot and killed at the beginning. And I forget the guy's name. What is the guy? Maybe it'll say on the back, or maybe on the front even. Nope, there's no cast list absolutely whatsoever. It's a real shame because I really like the actor, David something. I don't know. He's got like a 3-name thing, so it's like David something. I think, I don't know. But the guy who plays the bad guy, he played Jerry Horn in Twin Peaks. He's a very good actor. I feel bad for forgetting his name. But he shoots this guy, Cyrus, and then he blames it on the Warriors. So now every gang in New York is after the Warriors, and the Warriors are trying to get the train home to Coney Island. Now, they say that Coney Island is like 50 to 100 miles away. I don't think that's accurate. Maybe it is. When we were in New York a few years ago, we were going to go to Coney Island. It didn't seem like it was going to take us a 100-mile train journey to get there. So I don't know what that was all about. Maybe I'm completely incorrect on that, and I'm not sure. But either way, they're trying to get back. They go to Union Square, and they've got to get back on the train. But every time they get on the train, something happens. There's gangs waiting for them at every corner, every turn. And it's super fun. You've got this amazing 70s soundtrack. Even the beginning, the opening credit sequence is incredible. You got like a shot in the subway of the train rolling through the tunnels, and kind of the credits coming up to the screen. And then the camera whips around, it pans around. And then you have the music building up, the gangs turning up. The editing is incredible. It builds such a pace of energy, and it's really just fun to watch. You know, it's like 90 minutes, you breezes by, and you got really fun characters. The acting isn't fantastic, but it's just a really fun, kind of grungy, grimy, gritty movie, and there's some really badass fight scenes peppered throughout the film, nice and evenly, I think. And you've got like nice characters who are kind of playing off each other. Like the members of the Warriors gang, like they all have their own different personality types, and they kind of rub each other the wrong way. They some side with others and stuff. The only criticism I would say is that there's one member who dies in the film, and he gets thrown in front of a moving train. It's a very stark and memorable shot where he gets thrown into the tracks, and it's a slow motion shot of him just falling over into the subway, and it's a really impactful moment. And that character kind of never gets mentioned again. They just never talk about him again. There's no like, where's this guy? Maybe they say that, but like it's never referenced again. And they make a point to talk about, because the gang gets split up and they come back together again. And like, where's this guy? Oh, he got arrested. That kind of thing. But they never mention the guy who just never turned up again. And it just feels really strange and weird. Anyway, I love the film. I think it's a really fun ride. And it was kind of a shame that this is the only way to view it in this kind of, I don't want to say truncated form. I'll leave that in for free. Jesus Christ. It's kind of my throat issue and my normal issue of jumbling up my words. In truncated form, I won't say that because that's not true, but I just feel like it's been, something's been lost there, because the natural flow of where the editing of the original movie keeps that pace rolling gets disrupted by this flashy kind of, ooh, look what we can do in a computer in 2005, and it just doesn't quite, again, mix with the rest of the film. Anyway, I love the music and the way those needle drops come in throughout the film. We have this DJ who's kind of doing commentary over the Warriors trying to get home throughout the film. I'm assuming she's on radio or some kind of pirate radio station, because she's addressing all the gangs throughout New York. And it's just a close-up of her lips and these kind of just shimmering, sparkly red lipstick and the microphone, and then the needle drop and the music playing, and you just get this great soundtrack to this chase kind of across the city. And it's just and I remember vividly the first time I watched this film being struck the most by this one beat towards the end where two members of the gang, they're kind of sitting down on the train at the end of the night, and this kind of normal group come in, just these kind of normal middle class kind of young people. They've been to a party or a wedding, and they're all laughing and stuff, and they sit down, and then they look across and they see the Warriors, who are there just like in these vests and kind of grimy dirt, kind of scratches and blood, and they just look at each other. And they're just looking at them, and it's not a challenge, they're not trying to intimidate them, they're just looking at each other, and there's so much you can read into that exchange. And obviously it intimidates the middle class people and they kind of leave the train on the next stop. But just the, I don't know, just this culture clash. It's a really interesting moment where the film really just takes a pause. And the film does take a pause, you know, throughout the movie. It's not all rapid fire action, and I like that about it. I like the build up and the tension and suspense that is built throughout some of these interactions with the gangs and them trying to navigate their way down dark city streets. And the cinematography is beautiful, like the framing, the composition, and just capturing this kind of grimy, dark, you know, nighttime New York, you know, landscape and, you know, just area, surrounding atmosphere, mood. It just it's a great film. I love The Warriors, and that's it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you. 'Cause